What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be parsing documents in Databricks. Now, Databricks has a built-in function called AI Parse Document. That's what we're going to be using in this lesson. We're going to take a PDF and we're going to start processing it so that we can turn it into usable data. Now, let's take a look at what AI Parse actually is. So AI Parse Document is kind of the first part of the process. We need to take this free text and we need to put it into a format where we can actually start using it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the AI Parse Document on our PDF, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. We're going to parse it and it's going to turn it into HTML. HTML kind of looks like this on the right-hand side. This is not columns and rows just yet, but this is part of the process, because then in the next lesson, we're going to use AI extract in order to take all that data out of the HTML and put it into columns and rows. But AI parse document is really useful because it doesn't just work with free text, it also works with tabular data as well. We can use images, PDFs, documents, all sorts of different files, and it's going to work really, really well. Let's take a look at our PDF that we're going to be using. All right, so this is our medical claim. And if you've never seen a medical claim, it'll look something like this, right? We have some CPT codes, ICD codes, the description of what happened, how much it was actually billed, and how much the customer actually paid, as well as some other information. And this is all just kind of free text. Now, this is not narrative data. We will get to some more narrative data in our final project, but for demonstration purposes, I wanted to use something that I think would be easy to follow along. And I think this is very realistic. I've worked with this type of data a lot. You'll be able to download this PDF from a link in the GitHub below. Be sure to go get that so you can follow along with this lesson. Now let's come over here and let's get into Databricks, and let's get me out of here because I don't want to be taking up the whole screen while we're trying to look at all the code we're about to write. Now here's what we're going to do. Let's come over here to our catalog and let's actually create a new catalog. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to say create a catalog, and we're just going to call this IDP. Now we're going to start off with just one file, and that's going to be the file that we just looked at. But in future lessons, we'll be using many different files, and we're going to store them all in here. So let's come in here. We're going to actually add it to this default. So we're going to come right over here and we'll create a volume so that we can put all of our data in here. I'm going to name this one YouTube lesson, and we'll go ahead and create this. And now we have this YouTube lesson in here. Now here's where we need to upload this document. So let's go to upload to this volume, and we just need to drag our file in there. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select our file. I'm going to come right over here to sample medical claim. That's the one that we were just looking at. And I'm going to open it up, and we are going to upload this file. So now we have our file right here sitting in our YouTube lesson volume, and then that is within our IDP catalog. So we have it exactly where we want. Now that the file is actually sitting within Databricks, everything can happen within Databricks. We can have our raw data, which is our PDF, and then we can read in that file in our notebook, and we can start transforming it using the AI parse document. So let's come up here. We're going to go to a notebook. Now you can rename this notebook if you'd like. I'm just going to say IDP series because we'll do all of this within this notebook. And I'm also going to make this default be SQL. And yes, just because we're going to be using SQL, you can use Python if you really love Python, but I like the syntax of SQL, and I also think it really flows well with what we're going to be doing. So let's come right in here. Now here's one thing I want to note. I am going to be writing basically everything out from scratch, but you can do a lot of it with the generative AI as well if you know what to say and kind of how to talk through it. But if you don't, I'll walk through it and I'll explain all the code as we go. Now, since we're going to be transferring this data, I highly recommend setting up some type of temp table so that we can kind of stage this data before we start transforming it. So I'm going to say create or replace, and I'm going to say temp view, and we'll call this raw unstructured document. And now we're going to say as, and we're going to come right down here. And now we just need to select our data. So we have to select the data from the catalog and the volume that we just created. So we're going to say select, and I already know what this looks like, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but we're selecting the path and the content, and I don't need that. But now the from is the most important part. We could have just selected everything, but I kind of know what I want. But from is the most important part. So we're going to say read file, and this is going to help us read in this unstructured data. We're going to do an open parentheses, and we need to put this all in quotes. So I know where this is located. So we're going to say / volume. Then we'll do IDP default, and then the YouTube _ lesson. Let's go ahead and run this. And actually, I think the file is read files, not read file. Let's go ahead and run that. It looks like it read that in properly. Now we can view this raw unstructured temporary table that we just created. So let's create this, another cell down here, and we can say select everything. And now we'll do this from, and we can copy this raw unstructured doc. Let's go ahead and run this. Now, if we scroll right here, you can see that we are pulling in this sample medical claim. This is the only file that's in here. If there were different file paths and there were different files in there, it'd be giving us all the different files that we have. Now, this just looks like a bunch of gibberish as of right now, but that's because it's not actually reading in the real data. This is basically just telling us that there is content in it. In fact, if I were to really do this, I would probably do a path here, and then I would say length of content, because I'm not actually looking to validate the data. I'm really just making sure that there is data in there. And there we go. So this is probably more what I'm looking for rather than the actual content that was right up here when reading in this file. Now let's keep going down. Now we're getting to the fun stuff. We're reading in this file and there is data in there. So now we want to use our AI function. This is going to be our AI parse document. Again, I want to set up another temporary view here. So I'm going to say create or replace temp view. We'll call this one the parsed structured document. And now we need to specify what's in there. So we'll select our path. And then next, we're going to say AI underscore parse underscore document. Now we have our autocomplete here. I am going to use this because this is basically what we need, except this select statement right here. So I'm going to get rid of that. And now this is looking really good. Let's go ahead and run this. This OK tells us that that temporary view with the parse structured doc worked. Let's go ahead and run our query on this. So we're going to say select, and we're just doing the path and the parsed content. So we're going to say path and parsed content from the parsed structured doc. Let's go ahead and run this. Now we're starting to actually see what is in this document. Let's come right down here and let's pull this down just a little bit so we can see a lot more information. So this is our sample medical claim.pdf. Again, we are using right here the AI parse document. This is actually reading in all of the data and it's putting it just like this. There's a lot going on in here, but one of the things I want to focus on is right here. We have this table, and this table contains our CPT code, our ICD, description, build amount, and paid amount. Those were our columns that were inside of our table. This is the data that I want to focus on right here. It's this table of data. I want to try to extract this one. So let's come right down here and let's come to our code. And now that we have this parsed out, so we have this parsed structured doc, now we want to specify what data in here we kind of want to focus on. Once we're able to identify this, we're going to use the AI extract in the next lesson to actually start structuring our data. Now, just while we're here, as a quick note, I said this was an HTML. This also is kind of a JSON variant. And so whether you call it JSON output, whether you're calling it an HTML output, it's okay. Either one is fine. They're both kind of right in this instance. And I guess it depends on the actual file type that you're using, but it's kind of a JSON HTML output. Now, again, remember this part right here. We have this table. Let's come right down here, and we're going to create one more temporary table purely for staging purposes. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to specify what data we're looking at, and we're going to use a function within Databricks called explode. Now, if you don't know what the explode function is, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to use it. It's basically going to turn a map column, which is this, it's an array, into multiple rows because we have lots of rows of data. And so I'm going to show you how to use that. So let's come down here. So we're going to do the same thing as we did before. We're going to say create or replace temp view. We'll call this one the structured tables. And then we need to specify what data we're going to be getting here. So we're going to select the path. And what we're going to do is we're going to cast that content as a string just in case it doesn't work. And we'll do that down below when we explode that function as well. If you don't understand this stuff, it's okay. This is something that as long as you know how to use it and what it does, you can use AI to help you write this. And it's, right here for you if you want to do it that way anyways. So we're going to do try underscore cast, and we're going to do content, and we'll do that as a string. And we'll just call this as table HTML. Now we have to specify where we're getting this from. So this is the parsed structured doc. I'm just going to auto tab that. But now we're going to do something different. We're going to do something called a, lateral view. Now this is actually something called Spark SQL. So this isn't native to just SQL, but a lateral view allows you to use table generating functions like explode, like you can see in our autocomplete right here, to turn that into a column, and then you can join it back to the original row. And so let's see how this works. We could just hit tab right here, but I'm gonna write this out because I still want to use the try cast here. And this is actually exactly what I want to write, but we're gonna use the parse content as an array and make sure it's sitting as a string. So let's go ahead and hit tab here, or you can write it out as well. We need to close these parentheses as it's suggesting. Then we'll just give it an alias here. And if we want to, we can also go like this and make sure it knows where it's coming from. If you want to be super thorough like me, you don't have to. But now what I'm about to do is I'm about to specify what data we actually want to pull, because we only want to pull it where it's tables. And you can actually see that right in here. I think it hears me or it knows what I'm looking for here. But I'm going to do, again, a try cast, and I'm only doing this just in case some of the data types are having any issues, which they shouldn't. You don't have to do this. I just like to be thorough or to be more explicit in what I'm doing. So I'm going to do where the type, and we'll make sure that's as a string, is equal to table. And this is actually in the wrong spot. Let's get rid of that, just like that. This looks fancy, but really all we're doing is we're adding some try casts in here to make sure that there aren't any issues with data types. And we're exploding this column right here, this parse content, so that we can pull the data where it is a table. Let's go ahead and run this, and it should give us an okay. Now we're getting this error right here, and I was just looking at this for a sec. I actually think when we're casting this as an array, it actually needs to be a variant here. And I used the auto tab earlier, and I shouldn't have, but this array needs to be a variant. And let's try running this. And there we go. So now we should be able to query this. So let's come and just select everything. So select everything. We'll do that from the, and I don't write like I write. I said that. So now it says structured tables, but let's go ahead and run this. And we are getting no output, and I'm pretty sure I know why. It's because we need to be more specific on the actual content within this JSON. We need to specify that's coming from the document as well as the elements. So let's come right here. We're going to do colon documents, colon elements, and let's run this again. That shouldn't take long. There we go. Now let's try running this. And there we go. It's always those little things that I kind of forget as I'm doing these walkthroughs, but let's go ahead and take a look at what we're pulling out right here. If we go back to our original document, we have the CPT code. Here they are, ICD codes, descriptions, build amount, paid amount. This is what we're pulling out because this is kind of our somewhat structured data that we already just want to have. And as you can see, here we have our CPT codes, then our ICD codes right here, and then our descriptions. And in the next lesson, we are going to take this and we're going to extract this data and put it into columns. Now, if you've never used like a traditional OCR system for pulling data out of PDFs and things, this might seem a little difficult, but I assure you, this is actually really easy. Once we actually extract that data out and put it into columns and rows, this is by far one of the easier processes for extracting data from unstructured documents that I've ever used. Now that we have this data in this format, this is just like HTML. We can now use that AI extract to pull that data out and put it into columns and rows. Honestly, all the code that we wrote here was not crazy difficult. And with the assistant that they have in here, if you don't know how to do this stuff, that's okay, because the assistant actually is quite useful. You could probably do most of these things with autocomplete and kind of tweaking it here and there to get what you want. But the AI parse document was able to do the heavy lifting and identifying the things that we wanted. And then we just started paring it down to the data that we specifically want to put into columns and rows. I cannot wait till we go to the next lesson and use that AI extract because I think it's pretty cool. But if you learned anything, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next lesson.